Here we are again, boys and girls, alive and unwell with, tragically, Richard Lewis. Oh, I took a couple of days, maybe a couple of weeks off from this very difficult show I do here. I missed you, miss all of you. This has really been good for my head, man. I've been trying to find people that I not only do I like or know and appreciate their kindness to me or their situation in life, and that I find fascinating. But it's just really cool for me to be able to share this with you, and I'll continue to do it. Why not? You know, my father was the king of caterers back in New York and New Jersey when I was a kid growing up. He truly was the best. And he would turn an empty gymnasium into a wonderland for a wedding, in 5 hours. And then he would do all the physical work, and then he would change into a tuxedo. And he worked 24 hours a day. I rarely saw him. And when I got out of college, the Ohio State University, I was hell-bent on being in some fashion in comedy. Didn't know how or what or where to go. And I had a dozen part-time jobs, including copywriting, which was sort of fun, but it wasn't why I was put on this planet. And my father died. Boom, bang, over. I was like in shock, man. And I just couldn't believe that I was left alone. I wasn't that close. My brother and sister, and they had moved out of the house. Anyway, I left home basically at 17 and went to college in Europe for a spell. But when my father passing, I felt such a huge hole in my soul. It's a cliche, but it was true. And I had to fill it up. And to me, filling it up was having the balls to go into New York. And I was living in some apartments at different places in New York and in New Jersey. At this point, I was in some hellhole in New Jersey. And I decided that I was going to be a comedian and nothing was going to stop me. I didn't know what kind of comedian. I know I wanted to share my feelings. That was urgent in my life because I was going through such emotional upheaval. So, why am I saying all this? I had the good fortune of knowing and working a couple of movies with John Candy. What can you say about this guy? He's one of the great comedic and also dramatic actors, but known for his comedy. And years back, it dawned on me that Chris Candy, his son, the late John Candy, has a wife, a wonderful wife, and a daughter and a son. And Chris, we got to know each other. Not great, not great. We didn't spend a great deal of time together, but somehow he'll remind me when I let him in how it happened. And he just struck me as being so kind and talented. And, I so related to him because my father died before I entered my career. And, I'm friends with Kitty Bruce. She's going through a tough time right now, physically. And there is a charity, by the way, and Comedy Gives Back out of LA. You can help Lenny Bruce's daughter, I might add, get through some really tough times, because if it wasn't for Lenny, we would all be thrown into paddy wagons, man, saying what we want on stage. And if it wasn't for John Candy, we would have lost, that would have been a hole in this comedic planet of ours. He was just unbelievable to me. I was stunned by his genius. And I hate using that word. I'm using it a lot lately, but why shouldn't I get geniuses? Why shouldn't I love geniuses? And then I got to know Chris. And I never shared this with him, And why I'm doing it to you and without him here is the most absurd thing I've ever done. I'm a little rusty today. So I'm going to let Chris in. I want to talk about family, talk about what he's been doing all these years. And, you know, I mentioned Lenny's daughter because she was like 9 years old when Lenny died. And I think Chris was around 8 or 9 years old. And I was, you know, I was 21, but I lost my father. So it's one big happy family. I don't know, man. I'm going to let Chris in. And look, what is he getting into? He doesn't even know. He doesn't hear this shit. Oh, Chris, why did I put you through this? Chris, you're admitted to the chamber. Chris, you're admitted to the chamber.
Okay.
Chris, hey, thanks, honey. It's my Joyce is the producer of this extravaganza. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Richard, how are you, man?
Well, I'm in a very melancholy mood, number one. First of all, thank you for being part of this. It's not in CinemaScope, and there's no
No.
sound either. So no one will, and in fact, I see you, but no one will see you either. So it's just a lark I'm having with friends. No, I
Okay.
just no, bring it on. This is more your show than mine because this is the loosest video, I think they call it video podcast. Is that what this is, Chris?
Yeah, the video podcast, a Zoom call. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think I'm happy you're doing it. I'm
really?
really happy you're doing it. Yeah, yeah.
Why is
I
that?
just you're so funny. When I saw the first one, I was going, you should have been doing this years ago. You're the best. I just I
Well,
love and adore you. I love that other people could see the conversations and the way your mind works on a phone call.
that's enough. I don't hear anything. That's all I need. Take care, Chris. No, no, it's not. It's not. No, it's not enough. But I thank you. Let me. I'm embarrassed because I was telling the people who watch this. Um, well, I'll jump to the chase. Uh, we're sort of in a group of this is a small group of that I know right now off the top of my head. Kitty Bruce was 9 years old when Lenny died, and you were around nine. Am I mistaken? When your late father
Yeah,
passed, around
yeah.
eight
I
or
was
nine?
8 or 9. Yeah,
Yeah.
1994.
Now,
Yeah,
I was older. I was 21, but I wasn't in show business yet. Well, I
right,
was I was writing jokes for people and trying to explain that to my father after graduating college. I go, I'm writing jokes for these. All right, because when you get a job, that kind of thing. But he died
right.
and many heart
Yeah,
attacks. And I was
he had a
telling,
heart attack.
yeah, he had plenty of. That's how he. Yeah, Lenny overdosed on morphine, or I don't think he was. Well, anyway, but your father passed, and I mean, I have a lot of connections with with you,
Sure.
because I forgot how we initially got in touch. I used to write. When I was touring, I used to bring my notes and jokes to different hotels and like the Chateau Marmont
Right.
or the St. James or the
Yeah.
Sunset Towers, rather now it's called, and the Four Seasons and all those. I like to sit in the lobby with 3,000 Diet Cokes and go over my tour material. And I must have
Right.
ran into you at a hotel, or I know I reached out to you. Uh,
Yeah. It was actually really started out of my curiosity. Um, I remember I think it was 10 years ago now. And I was really curious about the time at which my dad passed away, and you guys were, and I was thinking about all the people who were around him at the time. And I had remembered that you had talked on A&E biography for him. And I had been a fan of yours prior to that. Before I ever met you, I would see you on Curb or in movies or in your stand-up. And I just always loved what you did. But I thought to myself at that time, I was kind of on this journey to meet people who had known him specifically during this window before he passed. And you came to mind, and I was going, well, I don't know, I went to your website and I think I emailed your manager. And then a couple of days later, I had an email from you, and I was just so ecstatic. And then, yeah, you invited me to get coffee. And we went to, I think, Four Seasons. I remember
Oh,
meeting you there.
how so that's so me. No, I mean that's a nice. I mean, I'm
I
going
was
to
ready to
take
go to
John's
like,
son. I'm not going to take John's son. I'm not going to go to Pink's and stand outside and bullshit with a hot dog and relish. Although that might have been a better idea. It would have been funnier.
yeah.
But yeah, no, I
How
remember.
about
I do
the
remember.
coffee bean? Yeah.
Well, why not? But I do remember, sitting down with you, and you were on this sort of emotional mission, as I recall.
Sure.
Not to make it too heavy-handed, uh,
Yeah.
because
Well, I always say that, like, well, it's like, anyone can relate, I think, with loss or anything from a parent. And I just, especially when you're that young, I've said, and it's true, you kind of feel like a private investigator a bit on that person's life a little bit. And you kind of are talking to people who knew them, and getting and story and like points to their life, and you were really candid about that time, and you were really, the things you said were really lovely, but you were also telling me that, like, your memory wasn't as good back then, when you were working on Wagons East, I think. And
no,
so,
no. Well, I mean, it's been pretty public for a long time. I mean, I was bottoming out on drugs and alcohol at that time,
right,
and when your father passed, I really went into a deep funk, which
mm,
he'd probably be happy for me. That shoved me into rehab, soon
right,
after.
yeah,
Prior to that, I mean, the movie it's fair to say had some really wonderful people in the cast, but it
right,
just didn't, on paper, it seemed it would work better, but no one seemed to be ecstatic about it. And that, so that happens, and
yeah,
but so on the downside for me, I wasn't doing well, and I was stuck with the chore of doing PR for this movie when they finally
right,
assembled it. Well, must have been months later, and that was very difficult. Uh,
yeah,
it was very difficult, but I felt I had to honor your father, who I also. I do jump around. Well, you know me, Chris. We had worked
yeah.
together two years prior, on Eugene Levy's direction, uh,
Once
in
Upon a
Rome,
Crime.
and Once Upon a Crime, and that's where I had the most fun because everybody was in a great mood, and there were the memories I have of your father. And I'm such a guilt-ridden, crazy fucking guy. This show is to talk about us and you. But once I'm on a subject, we'll go with it, and then we'll just put on the brakes.
Right.
And, but in Rome, I remember walking the streets with your father in 1991. Excuse me. It was like walking with the Pope. It was just holy shit. It was just too
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
He was so fucking humble. I
yeah,
remember, uh, and this very famous, one of the most iconic producers, Dino De Laurentiis, who did
yeah.
about 1,000 movies, and I don't do any impressions, but you'll come to eat with me, you'll do this and that. I had no idea what he was talking about. I just know he was brilliant at what he did. And we were doing a scene in a police station, and in the middle of the take, Dino opens the door of the police station and goes, "John just came. He just came to Rome." And seeing Eugene Levy's face, his eyebrows went up over his head and almost strangled him. But we had to laugh because that
Yeah,
John was the golden boy there, and he deserved
right.
that kind of stuff. And then we went in Monte Carlo in the same film. Dino took us to this most decadent restaurant I had ever been to. It was a big table with the cast and the producers, and there was wildlife strolling by, goats, and porpoises. Can a porpoise walk? And people would
They
take
are
a
in this
drink.
story.
They would take a drink, Chris. They would drink and then throw the glass into an open, hearth, whatever they're called. And everybody was John was dancing on the table with Sean Young, and I just was.
Oh
I
my
just
God.
had a little coffee cup that was being refilled with simply sangria. I figured, how bad can it be? Well,
Right.
I was wrong. I was wrong. When I went to the hair and makeup trailer 2 days later, they went, "Here he comes. Be quiet." What do you mean, be quiet? They said,
Yeah.
"We heard."
What were you guys talking
What did
about?
you hear? The
Yeah.
party. What do you mean? Yeah. What about it? He says, you don't remember what you did? I went, actually, I don't remember what I did. I said, I know that John was
Yeah.
dancing and all the cast was dancing with Sean and everybody had a great time. But apparently, uh, I was doing things that I had forgotten. I had one too many sangrias, but not
Yeah.
during the, but I'm
Easy
not
to do.
making, I mean, I'm a recovering addict for almost 30 years now, but I'm not making
Yeah.
excuses for any behavior. But I took my work really seriously. If I'm out at a
Yeah.
cast party on Friday night, that time in my life, I'm going to just, maybe get a little, out of my mind.
Cut
But I
loose.
did.
Yeah.
Cut loose on occasion. But at any rate, let's just go to 93, that movie. I just, in
Right.
Durango, Mexico, which was a really difficult place. And he was flying home, I think, wasn't he? He didn't like to stay there. Do you recall him flying home on weekends or most weekends?
Yeah. It's interesting because like in talking to you about that and like to just like say like that was, yeah, it was like an emotional journey, but it was more of like just pure curiosity. Like I was thinking about what was that time like for him. Because, I have memories and I really genuinely think that my father was like getting ready to turn the wheel around. And I think he was beginning in that last year of his life to start, he was in therapy and he was taking care of himself. And I think that he was really trying to, look inward and do a lot of things to take care of himself. But, you can only go so long, and he was just a high level guy in regards to all the work he was doing and, the weight he had on and all of these things. Like it just, the body can only handle so much. Right. And so I remember him coming back home quite often. And then, yeah, he went back down there and then, he passed away. That later put me in contact with people who really were around him, his driver, Frankie, who's now passed away, and his old trainer and friend Calvin from the Argonauts. And so I would then later talk to them and get a good kind of image on what was going on back then. But I always respected you because even like prior to meeting you, I remember you on Howard Stern, and I think Stern was cracking jokes about it, and you were defending my dad. And I just thought, to have a buddy, who I didn't even know at the time, kind of standing up for me, my sister, my mom, the only people who would really be offended by something like that, like on a real level from a joke. And I get that it's a joke or a bit or whatever Stern is up to. I'm just saying, like, it was cool to hear you say that. I think I found the clip on YouTube somewhere. But anyways, just since then, I was like, that's so cool of Richard Lewis.
Well, I appreciate that.
That's and so. And then, you kept on inviting me to get coffee. So
Well,
that was cool too.
yeah, no, then we started to get to know one another. But
Yeah.
the, you know, and we don't, I don't want to stay on this day too often in this interview.
No.
But I loved your father we weren't close friends, but we had a great
Right.
connection. And one of my biggest thrills, and you're right, I was concerned about his weight, but I wasn't a close friend and enough to say, "Hey, John, come on, come on," because he didn't seem very happy about. Listen, the guy who directed and wrote it, good guy. He had a good resume, but it just didn't work out. And John
Right.
wasn't, and it just one of those things. You know, it was one of these broad westerns that it's either going to work or it's not. You know, it's either going to be,
Right.
Blazing Saddles or not. You know, this kind of thing. The
Right.
way I looked at
Yeah.
it. And so what we would do, and I did it mostly in Mexico, unfortunately, because and I didn't do a lot of scenes with your father in Rome or in Once Upon a Crime. But by the way, just so I don't forget, did you know that that movie Once Upon a Crime, Dino De Laurentiis had such a Jones for this film, for this plot, that this little dog and this little, oh God, he made the movie about 4 times with different casts. You know, I do it
Really?
again. I get John Candy. I'll get Richard Lewis. You know, it was just he was such a
Really?
he just loved the storyline, and it
Yeah.
really
It's a fun
it, it,
movie.
it is. It's a good movie. It's a great
Yeah.
family movie too, whatever that means anymore. Uh, but I used to get a thrill, a real thrill. He'd be sitting on his horse, and we had say 20 minutes, and we didn't want to go into a trailer or anything. And I would say, "Look, John, let's just go back to SCTV. I'm one of the writers, and I'm going to give you a setup, and you're Monty Cliff, and you're for some reason you lost a bet, and you're trying out for a baseball team, and but Marilyn
Right.
Monroe just called you, and you don't know whether to go to play with the Yankees or go drinking with Marilyn. Action!" And he would do all the voices, do the storyline, and I go, "Holy shit!" And then he had this laugh, and I just want to share this with you. I don't, if I
Yeah.
really got him with a laugh, his face would crinkle up, and then he, in a silent way, go, and when he did that, I don't know what it looked like. It was probably very unattractive, but when I had that laugh out of John Candy, that's a home
Yeah.
run in any comedian's book. So,
Sure.
so anyway, the worst case scenario happened, and we got out of there,
Right.
and the John. Well, there's a lot of, put it mildly. Uh, the last night I saw him was a scene that he did with several of us,
Right.
and it's sort of maybe unfair to say, but a couple of us spoke to him on the telephone praising him, and which was
Right.
heartfelt, and because it was very dramatic, and that's probably maybe one of the problems with the movie was the tone was up and down, and it
Right.
didn't find its rhythm, uh,
Right.
however, or tone really. But we spoke, and then we were picked up to go back to the set about an hour drive, and we went, and then and then we found out there, we had to take this whole bus ride, and then
Yeah.
it was singularly, one of the hardest moments in everybody's life, certainly your family, but outside of the family, your mom and your sister and you know it's harrowing, and I pray you never go experience anything like that. And then I felt hell-bent on talking about John, even though it was about a film that was not quite up to par for John, but he had such a resume prior to this, as you know, that
Sure.
I did it. I was honoring the artist by doing PR, and you get some of these biographies on TV. You're sitting there for an hour and a half, and then I'll be watching it. Like I remember, I'll be watching the one. I said, "Well, I had to do something for John." Then I watch it. I'm going hair and makeup. You're schlepping an hour downtown. There's a studio. How do I don't care how I live. Let's go. The guy says,
Yeah.
"Hi, I'm a big fan. I don't care. I just want to talk about John." And I sit there and they ask me 390,000 questions. And then 5 months later, it's on television. And here's me in the entire thing. He's funny. And then they cut away to Martin
It's
Short,
true.
Levy. So, but that's, when I met you, I was very interested in and I never really got a chance to ask you because the last 4 or 5 years, I've had some surgeries and stuff,
Yeah,
and I am fighting Parkinson's, so I've sort of been a little closer to home. But you'll come up, and I'm getting more courageous as I go, to try to tell people that it's not the end. I
right.
don't
No,
I don't know, but
who knows?
yeah, who knows is right. Just living.
Yeah,
What I've learned from this experience is living in the now is about the best thing I can do, because not
right.
gonna be in the pity pod, which I occasionally fall into about the past and the future.
Sure.
Who has a fucking clue? So we don't. Uh,
Yeah,
but you started, maybe 15 or so years after your pop died to go into the arts. I mean,
right,
what prompted you, and what kind of stuff were you interested in the beginning of your journey?
right. Um, it's funny, like I really I didn't want to do what my father did. Like I was so embarrassed early on as a kid um of the attention. Like it's a really unique experience, I think, like to be in that situation that I've been in, where everyone knows your father's name or characters and they love them. And as a kid I was kind of confused by all of that, and it took me a lot of time to grow up to really appreciate it. So I didn't want to go into acting at all, even though I would always do a play. I would do plays at the Marymount High School, which was the all-girls school. They had let me play the male role in all of the plays.
What did you sneak
And
in?
then
You snuck into the cast? I
my sister Jen went to this
Oh,
school, and
Jen
the
went there. That's
theater. Yeah, the theater department lady, this woman Gail, she let me, she asked me to come play all the male roles. So it was
cool.
instead of the pigeon sisters, it was the parrot brothers and the odd couple, It was and then I got to work with this other guy, and I was always doing stuff in college. I did a play, but I was like dead set on music. I was like, and I love music, and music is like always there. I really wanted to do it professionally, even though I had no idea what that meant.
Right.
And I loved touring. I was on the road, and I was playing in a punk rock band. I made really good friends with people in the DIY punk rock scene, ska scene. And that's what I loved. And then when I went to college, um, started a band there, and then I was studying sound design. So no acting, like, oh, I'm not going to be an actor. I'm not going to be an actor.
Right.
Um, and then I started working with this guy named Donovan Frankenreiter, and Donovan is he's like a kind of Jack Johnson type, James Taylor, acoustic soft rock, really good stuff. And I was his guitar tech, and I worked with him for like 2 years. I had so much fun, traveled the US, went to Europe once with him, and I was doing front of house, loading stuff in, getting to do the sound for the opening acts. Worked with this guy Gary Jules, um, a few other people whose names are fleeting me. But anyways, I learned how to do it. And I remember I was in Heidelberg, Germany, and I was backstage, and they would let me play trumpet because I started playing trumpet when I was in the 6th grade. They'd let me play trumpet on one song. So I'd kind of be sitting in the backstage. If any guitar stuff went wrong with Donovan, I'd run on and fix it. And basically I'd go play one song, I'd come back, and then we'd wait to load out. And that was my day. Load in, wait, play one song, load out. And then I just realized, I'm like, I want to be on the stage, I want to be performing. And I had this moment when I got back from that, where I just said to myself, you're going to either have to embrace who your father is in a loving way, or you're going to have to do this weird run around talking about him thing. And I chose the love, and I chose to embrace it. And whatever came my way from that, I don't know what it's going to be, but let's just see. And that's what it was. And so, I'm good, but I'll be fully candid. Like I was so green and naive and stupid in the beginning. I was so like full of myself. I didn't really maybe say it, but I thought like I would go on a commercial audition and book it
Boom.
because I didn't realize how competitive it was, because the only thing I knew was my father's career that made no sense to me. He, like, fumbled ass backwards into Second City with all of the top talent in comedy in the 70s. And then he's a giant star. So that's my child perspective of success and achievement. And then the murmurings of, as I got older, of people saying, "Oh, you should act, or you'd be great as an actor." And it built this like really paper thin ego that I punched through very quickly. I mean, I'm always still working on it, but it's that you really have to work at it, and it is so fucking competitive, and it is really, you have to love it, you have to go for it. And because I'm by no means an accomplished actor, but I'm your struggling actor guest on here, but I love it. I just genuinely love it. And I've been really wanting to keep pursuing it,
Well, you're
but
not a struggling, excuse me, you're not a struggling actor. You're an actor when you're in
right,
that area,
right.
arena, because every actor is just an artist. And Sidney Lumet,
Yeah.
one of the great directors, when asked, and he directed practically everyone that was anybody for 40, 50 years, he would ask the actors, what's the most important part of acting? And they said, luck. Everyone
Right.
says luck, and it is luck. I mean, if we fast forward a little, after I had met you,
Sure.
you were out of that phase with the music tech
Sure.
and other stuff around that, and you were doing some really great stuff, comedic stuff.
Right.
With that actress, I forget her name. What was the name of
Oh,
that series you did on the internet?
so it's funny. Yeah. So when we met, I was doing this like improv based comedy show called Where's This Party? And
That's right.
I swear to God, you were a big influence on it, because it was like so unconscious. But the two characters, in the show are these deadbeat Hollywood movie producers that you would probably find at like Dan Tana's or Craig's on a bottomless bender of martinis. And they're just trying to get their terrible movie made. And anyways, the show took place in a Mercedes or a car, and it was a GoPro show, and we would do 2 long improv takes and then slice together a story. The characters' names were Richard and Lou. And that was right around the time I met you. And I'm going, wait, Richard, Lou. I think there was something going on there.
Was that an homage, or is that just by chance?
I think it was unconscious, but I think, I had met you, and I think that's sometimes how that works.
It's fine with me.
But one of the things too, like, is, if anyone stumbles across the show, we got to, basically the premise was like the characters would be at, a party, and they would kind of somehow take someone in their car to another party. And in that time, they would be trying to pitch the person in the backseat their bad movie idea. And the movie they were always pitching was Red Rover. And it was about a dog that witnessed a murder. And they were always trying to sell the movie. And I looked insane. I had a fake tan, like a Caesar wig. My co-star, Garen, she kind of looked like a Kris Jenner thing. And we would just improv. And, I look back, some are funnier than others. But we had a lot of fun doing it. And it's born out of my observation of how funky LA is. How many characters are here. You go through the Four Seasons, and you do look at those weird dudes sitting at the bar, and you're going, who the hell are they? And maybe one of them has, maybe one of them's got like a production hat from the movie Titanic or something like that. Or
And wait a minute, isn't that
just,
Richard Lou sitting there too? Oh God,
yeah.
Richard Lou.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
we would go to those spots and kind of recon on people and go like, oh, look
right.
at that maniac, or what's going on there. And anyways, that's what it was. But yeah, during that time we were doing that, we would pop in the city, and you and I were getting coffee, or we'd go to Greenblatt's and we'd hang out, and you'd
Right.
like leave me in stitches.
Well, I dug that. I thought the premise was golden with that show, and it was. And I thought it was fabulous. But I also remember you telling me. I know that your mother did a lot of art, painting,
Right.
And I think she was
Yeah.
did she do pottery? Am I remembering this? Or sculpture
Yeah.
or something?
So yeah, my mom's a ceramicist, and she was her name's Rose Candy, and she lives in Los Angeles, and she's still a practicing artist, and she
Great.
is a great sculptor. She does kind of practical things, coffee mugs, but she also does these really cool abstract things. And she'll do an art show once a year, or pop around to
That's
other shows
cool.
and stuff. But yeah, she's rad. It was a very creative, and I think that also was one of the things I looked at. It's like I wasn't, raised by librarians. It was like John Candy and a ceramicist. I kind of was looking at where I came from, and I was going, okay, I think I know something about. I think I understand the idea of entertaining people. So I mean, I'm still figuring that one out,
Well, the
but
three of
yeah,
you had
one of the things
no, go
I just
on.
thought of this though, man. Like, I think it's so cool that you and my dad got to work together because, my father wasn't a stand-up; he was an improviser. And you obviously can improvise, but you're, stand-up, and it's two different brains. But to get those two to gel together and to have chemistry from that doesn't happen all the time. And I just thought both films you guys worked together, you guys had that for sure.
Well,
Worked well together.
you're playing with the God there. So, but I was just thinking now how you and your sister and mom had to really bond together, I would imagine, after this tragic loss
Yeah.
and move on. And it takes its time. How did your sister rebound in her teens and into her adulthood now? In the business?
Jen's in the business, and we have very mirrored kind of paths. Like, I think, Jen is a improviser. She's tried stand up. She's a commercial actor. She's an actor.
Yeah.
And I think for her, it's like same thing. Like, I think if you were to ask her, I don't want to speak on her behalf, but she would probably say a lot of the same things. She was very focused on, like, she did the Second City thing, man. She moved to Chicago. She worked at the
Wow.
theater. She didn't have the issue that I had, right? Where I'm like trying to be my own guy. She didn't have that problem at all. She was like, no, let me see how he did it. Like, I'm not going to try and
Cool.
reinvent the wheel here, you know?
Yeah, right.
And for me, I was like, I was kind of figuring out how to do it my own way. And they each have their benefits. I'm not here to knock anyone's kind of path. And yeah, but now she's a mom. She spends a lot of time with her son, but she's out there running. She can do a lot of commercials. She does a show that she was doing with Second City Hollywood, even though it's not there anymore, where she was interviewing people. And that show is called Couch Candy. And that was like an interview show where she got to interview all walks of life from Second City, from Martin Short all the way to, Holly Laurent, just people who are teachers at the theater, or current active improvisers. So she's, has been working on that stuff. So yeah, that's kind of the world that she's in. But it's funny, the sibling thing is interesting because it's like, there is like sibling rivalry, but there's also a lot of love, and both of it's healthy.
And that was apparent to me when we discussed it a little bit when we were having my big lunches for you, coffee. Apparently, I just bought you coffee, but I
No,
call.
you didn't just buy me coffee. No, 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 no. The
Excuse
world
me.
needs to know about.
Send Chris a steak tonight. Get his address. No, I guess
No,
I'm
the
not
Richard
a cheap
Lewis
guy. I'm
Kugel.
really not a cheap
No,
guy.
yeah, well, but you would order the Richard Lewis Kugel.
Yes.
And do
You
you
know,
want me to explain what that is, or do you want to explain what that is?
I had a lot of addictions. Yeah, you can. I don't know if you ever saw did you really see me do it? The
You
Kugel?
ordered it for me twice, and you you were like looking at me like a science experiment as I was attempting to eat it. If I am not mistaken, it is the corner piece of the kugel, charred, like
Yes.
pretty charred, crispy, with get ready, internet, Splenda sprinkled on top of it.
A lot of them, a lot of packets.
No, and you know what? I'm gonna tell you, it's good. It's
It's
pretty good.
unbelievable. It's a fucking great dessert. But the Splenda
Yeah.
Grill, that's not. I don't recommend the dietetic sugar. Applesauce would be
No,
just
not now.
fine. Be just fine. So
It's
I also
yeah, we're
I
now back.
what happened with I think I was every now and then I get a commercial. I've been doing this for 55 years. I don't know what's going to happen now,
Yeah.
but I'm tired. But what do you how do you feel when you went on a commercial thing or a voice stuff? What kind I remember I went on one with this agency and I go into the booth and she says, "This is for M&M's. It's a voiceover only." I said, "Fine." She says, "Do you think you're more of a green M&M or a red M&M?" I went, "You got to fucking be kidding me." Now, I mean, I hadn't read the script. I'm sure now that I sort of
Yeah.
recall that the red one was a certain way, a hyper, and the green one wasn't. But I didn't get it, of course. And I was doing a concert at Largo the next night in a really great
Right.
venue in Hollywood on La
Oh
Cienega.
yeah.
And I thought she was going to be in the audience. So I just blasted her and the commercial audition. And then I went up for
Oh
another
my
reading and I
God.
thought that she was going to say, "Boy, you were fucking hilarious," or "How dare you?" And she wasn't,
Right, right, right.
she wasn't there
Oh
anyway.
shit.
So, but
Well,
how
I
are you
with
doing it? Do you
commercials.
try to get into that world? I mean, I would love to get
Oh
into
yeah,
that
that
animation world. I
I
mean,
for well animation I haven't. I've done a little bit of work, but not like I've worked with some people to get into that scene. Commercials I've done my fair share of now.
right.
Um, and those are great, you know, and those are kind of the backbone of you know being able to sustain being an actor for the other gigs. But um, it's funny, right? Like when I go in on those, I, I don't know if this is the best way to refer to them, but I feel like if you are able to go on union commercial jobs, it is like you're a member of a very exclusive casino. And you get to play when you get an audition and you get to go have fun and do your thing and you act the best way you can. But then, you know, it's such a game of roulette where you could nail the copy, make them laugh in the room, you know, have them talking about you later. And then it gets to the director or it gets to the client and they go, "Oh, we had a blonde, bald guy, or we had a blonde, bearded guy in the
After
last
all the
spot. We're
fun you
going to go
had,
with
yeah,
yeah, we're gonna go with the brunette dude. Or you know what, this guy's better Chinese. You know, whatever it is, you have no control over that. So you just go have fun and then move on with your
when
life.
I was
And if
much
you get
younger
one,
than, go on, I'm sorry, what, Chris?
oh no, if you get one, it's great and they run forever. You know, I've had some that have run for a couple of years, and that's really cool.
Oh, auditions,
Hey, I
just
just saw you.
auditions
Yeah.
alone are just, they're all crazy making. I've been very lucky. Of course, we're on strike now, the writers and the actors, but
Yep.
stay strong. I remember just came flashed across my mind. I was young, a young comic. I was about in my early 20s, and the head of casting at this studio just loved me. And she said, "I'm going to get you a
Right.
series." And I wasn't that trained at that point at all. And not that I've ever have been,
Right.
but trained enough. But this point in my life, in 23 or so, 24, 25 maybe. So I go to the studio. I mean, I go to the executive building in the studio and the three casting women are there, and it was an hour drama, and I was a spy, and the head of casting of the whole studio was there, and the director was some big shot guy, and so I'm sitting down. I have the sides with me, the script that I'm responsible for, and I was going to hold them. Someone once told me, "Always hold the sides because they know you can always be better
Right.
when you're off." Who knows? To me, when I look back now, if you know if you know it, just show it to them, and don't even hold
Yeah.
them. But I don't know what's right or
Yeah.
wrong. But dig this. So the director starts grilling me. He says, what party would he vote for? Would he be Republican or Independent or Democrat?"
Oh
Like,
God.
he was giving me like this midterm, like acting 101. If you do some homework, you want to know how this guy would react in certain situations and who
Sure.
would he like, who wouldn't he like.
Yeah.
So after about 15 minutes, I was sweating bullets. I said, and I yelled at the guy, and this is a big shot. I went, you know, really, I'm ready. I've been ready to do this. So let's do it.
Yeah.
I figured, I said, why? I did my homework. I mean, I was shouting myself out of the role anyway, but I didn't give a shit.
Right.
Because, you know, he was really trampling on my method at that point, whatever it was. So they say action, and I say the last line in a 7-page audition. I went, I'm going to Russia. And I exit the room and I'm in the hallway. I go, holy shit. Because I was so out of it and so not in touch with the scene that I was fucked. I said, I'm in the hall, you moron. That's the last line. I mean, it was like a 7-minute scene. So here's what I did. And your father, bless his soul, would be very proud of me. I walked back in and they're looking, and the head of the studio is going, they're all like this, shaking their heads, and the director, you know, is happy that I fucked up. And I look at the director and I say, you know, it's so cold there. I had no idea. I got to get a couple of cardigans before I leave. And I have to make and I thought that just coming back with it's cold and I need some cardigans would have got me the fucking role, but not the case. Not the case. Listen, I try not to hold people hostage on this thing. I adore you. I adore you, Chris. You're one of the nicest guys, you know, and I have met out here that, and you have overcome something that very few people can do with such grace and dignity and talent. And when I start getting out of the house a little more, or you come up and say, pay a visit, my wife knows how to make that killer kugel. And
great.
Yeah. And I want you to please send my love to your mother and to your sister. And I'll give you a holler in a couple of weeks, and we'll hang in person. But this was a good start.
Richard Lewis, this was lovely, man. I love you, and it's great seeing you. It's been a little while, but just smile, making me smile, man.
No, thanks, buddy. I adore you, and that's, I told you, did I not say thank you for watching, Chris? Thanks for being a guest, and I'll see you guys soon.
Thanks for having me.
And I'll hear from you. Take care, everybody.
All right, sounds good.
Bye-bye.
Bye.